Hello there, thank you very much for joining me again. I'm going to do another abstract project today using these lovely colours, mostly paints. I'm not using inks this time, and I will put all the colours as usual in the description. I'll be using my palette knives, and I'm going to use this bubble wrap or plastic wrap, whatever you term it, just to add some interest to this piece. I've got all my colours laid out on this plastic palette, a large amount of white, various colours, and on this side I've actually got some iridescent medium which I'm going to mix with some of the colours, and in other colours I'm just going to use it as it comes. So I'm going to start with this lovely soft blue. This is a real powder blue colour, and what I want to do is create a sort of pale colour in the very centre so that it actually takes your eye straight to that focal point no matter what else is going on. And around it we're going to have lots of interest. So I'm just making a basic frame shape with a soft 1-inch brush using just this baby powder blue colour. We've got it done now, and as you can see I've got all my colours laid out here, so I know that they all work together. Those of you who know me, I usually do a splash practice, but with acrylics it's slightly different. So now I'm going to fill in with just white, titanium white paint, because I want the canvas to be painted fresh so that we can apply the other colours. I'm going to go in with this lovely dark violet colour and the edge of my medium-sized palette knife. I'm not worried too much about the shapes that I'm making at this point because they will change as time goes on. Using that lovely silicone spatula, I'm pulling the paint, as you can see, just catching it and pulling it to the side. This is the point where you can just start to make your basic framework for what it is that you're going to add later. Now here we are adding some of that beautiful iridescent medium into this magenta pink. So I'm giving it a really good mix together. I've got a good amount of colour and a good amount of the medium, a little bit of that warmer pink just to heat it up, and just applying it with that lovely palette knife again. I want this sort of area to be quite thick, so I'm just brushing it up, making it cover, and I'm going to add it into various places around the canvas so we've got a nice balance of colours. We want to always look for that nice balance with something like this. I speeded it up a little bit because it's just filling in those gaps. I did a little bit more white there, as you could probably see. Now I'm going to go in with this lovely light red colour mixed with a little bit of white, and I'm back again with that 1-inch brush. I want to actually get some good colour on there, so I'm just pulling it very, very softly out from that line. We've got the structure that we started with, so I'm going to keep to that as the basis. A little bit there. I'm just going to pull that across, give that a little bit of a touch there. Mixes so beautifully, these colours together. And now we've got a sort of yellow colour there, which is lovely rich gold yellow. And I'm going to add that into various places, just to give that little bit of lightness. Those of you who know me know that these are really not my normal colours. I tend to go for the turquoises, the golds, that sort of shade. So this is quite a departure for me. And obviously you can choose whatever colours suit you the best. You don't have to copy the colours that I've used. I hope that you'll enjoy coming up with your own colour schemes. And just adding that deep purple, that violet there, just brings a lot more structure and gives a lot of contrast. As you can see, next to that sort of goldish colour, it works really well. So I'm going to brush this violet colour over this little bit of bubble wrap very, very gently, and then we're just going to apply it, press it down very gently. We don't want it filling in all the colour. That's a great effect. I'm really pleased with that, it works well. So I put a little bit more paint on. I'm going to do it in that area up at the top as well. Like I said, don't squash it down, otherwise you'll end up with odd shapes. Just lightly pat. I could probably have pressed a little bit harder there, but that's okay, there's still paint on it, so I'm going to put that over in this area. You can do as much or as little of this as you want, because obviously you can always paint over it, but it does add a really interesting sort of texture. I like it very much. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fill in some of those little dots just with the violet paint, just to add a little bit of softness to the lines and the structure that we've got. Okay, now I'm going to go back into this square in the middle and add some more of this lovely blue colour. It's starting to look a bit lost, so I'm going to add that in and then start to add some around the edges as well, just to pick up the thread of that colour. And a little bit more in that bottom corner there, and that balances that really beautifully. And I'm going to go in with this lovely terracotta colour here and start adding some layers of darker shades, mixing it with the purple. You can sort of go a little bit mad at this point. We don't have to be too precise. What we were doing is building up lots of colours. The layers before have probably dried, so we can sort of graze colour across to get some interesting effects. And that's that beautiful red again. As you can see, I'm using a small palette knife with a very pointed end for this part. So I'm pulling that up, but what I want to do now is cut into that. So we're creating some sort of marks and whatever variations in there. They don't have to be anything in particular, but pulling the paint around, making it do different things. So it breaks up the solidness of that sort of thing. Now I've got a little bit of paint there, so I'm just going to use this thin brush, wet it, and just pull that colour out. And across this other side with the same beautiful colours, and a little bit down next to that pink. You can mix these colours together very successfully. They're all of a similar warm shade, and so they work very nicely together. And again, I'm going to just brush that up, pull out some little pieces there, make some interesting marks, turn the palette knife a little bit as I push it, which gives some really interesting finishes. And again, back on this side with the gold over the top of that terracotta, pushing it and pulling shapes. This is lovely mark making. It doesn't have to mean anything, it just adds a lot of variety and a lot of texture. A little bit of that gold there as well, just to add that warmth. And as you can see, it's starting to build now into various sort of shapes. And applying this down here over the top of this pink that we put earlier. And this is what we want. We want interesting little effects. You can't actually plan those, they just happen. As Bob Ross would say, they're happy little accidents. So continuing to add in lots of areas, brushing it across. Now you can see where the bubbles have been. They've actually left a little white space. I love that. I'm going to highlight that pink. That's actually got pearlescent mix in it, so it's going to really shimmer later on. And again, we're just brushing colour in. I'm going to fill that area, make it a little bit broader. Just balance it out, mix it into that orange. Looking good. And again, just little lines here and there. Then you could pull that up and make interesting effects over the top of other colours. A little bit of that blue, that beautiful powder blue, and I'm just going in really quite thickly with it and pulling it across. Very good, it's coming together nicely now. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm mixing some magenta and the other pink as well, just to warm this up. So you can make your own shades. Remember, we've done a little bit of a trial on that piece of paper first, so we know the colours work together. For those of you unsure about doing that, please refer to my splash practice videos where I do a little test, usually with watercolours, but it works the same with acrylics. Before you start a painting, just making sure they work together. I'm just putting a little bit of white there, titanium white, just across. Remember, white comes in very, very useful with these sorts of designs because it can pick up colour and make them really pop. Like that beautiful terracotta there that I've added a little bit of pink into. Very rich, beautiful colour. We'll put a little bit up there as well, take it right up, and a little bit across there. Yes. And again, we're going just some white. This is just plain titanium white. And we'll mix that while it's still wet. We can pull that colour through, lift it up, and using the silicone spatula, pull it even further and start doing those little marks as well. Excellent. And down at the bottom, just a little balance. Okay, now I'm using the very large palette knife, which I've put paint along the edge. I want to just pull that across I know it's not leaving paint everywhere, but where it is, I quite like it, apart from that bit. So while it's still wet, I'm just going to wet it down like we would with a watercolour and leave it, and you can see how it's softened, and that actually makes a very pretty effect. I'm doing the same with the yellow. Now I like that line a little bit thinner, so again I'm going in with some water and the flat brush and just lifting that out. Now it's easier sometimes to turn your canvas around so that you've got a little bit better way of working. To make life easy for yourself. Right, I'm going into the pearlescent white here, and I'm actually going to put some of that into these little blobs. You can't see it very well, but you will do when the light hits it, because it'll look like little shimmery bubbles. It'll have a lovely effect. So I'm just going to dot them around randomly. Now, back in with this blue. I want to just create a little bit more of a border, mixing it in and then pulling it right the way down. So it's moving out of that square and pulling it downwards. And the same across as well. And now with some white, that'll really make it stand out. Although it is a pale blue, next to the white it will have an effect. I'm using the soft flat brush for doing this because it's a nice width, and as you'll see in a moment, you can use it on its end as well. Okay, and there we go, putting it on its end and then pulling that lovely white across. Gives us a nice thin line and allows us to also use it against this purple. I'm going to just tone that down a little bit with the white. It will just soften that a little, and I'll actually bring that across the blue so it adds an extra effect, and a little bit into the orange. Ooh, just brush that up a little bit, soften it, and then you can just add that white to areas that you want to make it pop. And this will also have the effect of softening down any lines that you find a little bit too harsh or a little bit too much. And there we go. Next to a dark colour, it really makes it pop. As you can see, that dark area is really standing out now because of the white. It's going up the side again. So any areas that you feel, you can brush it over the top. We'll soften that blue down just a little bit. There we go. That's just blended that in really easily. Hasn't taken away the blue, but it's just softened it. And in the centre of that square, I want it again a lot more pale, mixed in with the blue. You can use it on its flat, pull it out, make it do the work for you. There we go. And I'm just adding a little bit more purple in there, a little bit more violet just to that line where I want it to go. It just got a little bit away from me, so I'm just dotting it in. It looks effective. And I'm just softening that with a little bit of that pearlescent pink, that mixture that we made, and that looks really quite pretty there. I'm taking that colour just over that central box area, just so it gives it continuity. Just sort of gives it that finished off effect and looks like it might connect with the other bit on the other side at the top. So I'm quite pleased with this. I'm looking at it now and you can see the shimmer. We've got the pearlescent little areas. I think you can see in the light where it's mixed in really prettily. Obviously you could add more and more layers to this if you wished. And then it comes to which way round you want to hang it. Play about with it, see which one works for you. Just because you've painted it in one direction doesn't mean that's the way you have to actually finish it off. Try it in different ways, see which one you prefer. And you probably all have a preference, and it doesn't matter whichever you're comfortable with. So I've looked at this tester piece and I'm actually going to do something with this in a supplementary video. Those of you who would like to join my new membership, I will actually put that video in there. And prints of this will also be available in my shop, which I'll be opening soon. I hope you've enjoyed this and I hope you give it a go. Many thanks for joining me, and I will look forward to seeing you for another project very soon. Keep painting. Bye for now.